Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how I made this tattooed geode tumbler. This is Crystal from Emerson Aurora Design and I hope you enjoy my video. This is a 30-ounce Hoggdle from Stainless Depot. It is a hog tumbler with a handle and it's a skinny. I'm going to go ahead and I sanded it and washed it and I'm going to spray it with this Rust-Oleum gold paint. And here we are at a turner. I already applied a thin layer of epoxy to this tumbler and it's on my turner, and I'm going to apply this beautiful platinum glitter from the Glitter Craze. I'm going to cover the cup entirely for my base. This is a fine glitter and I did add a little bit too much epoxy, and you'll see that it's making that some spots are sparkly, some spots are flat. Just go ahead and add more glitter to this and it'll soak up into the resin and look really pretty when it's done. Once this is cured, I'm going to cover it with 2 more layers of epoxy, allowing ample time to let that epoxy cure in between each layer, and then I will sand it down and make it nice and smooth for our next step. Here it is sanded down, it's nice and smooth, and I'm going to add my glitters for my geode. But first, before I add my glitters for my geode, I'm getting ahead of myself. I have these temporary tattoo sheets that I purchased on Amazon. Just search in the Amazon search box for flower tattoos or temporary tattoos in any design that you want, and there are so many to choose from. I don't think I'd be able to get back to this link if I even tried, so give it a try and see what you can find. But I found these beautiful rose temporary tattoos and I wanted to add this to my tumbler. These are not water slides, they're temporary tattoos, so you're going to place it on the tumbler just like you would if you were placing this on your skin. You remove the little protective sheet and you're going to place this face down on your tumbler where you want it. Hold it in place, and then I'm going to take this paper towel and just get it really wet with some water I have over here and soak the paper completely. I'm rubbing it out from the center out to the edges to get rid of any bubbles that may be underneath that paper, and I'm just making sure that that tattoo paper is completely saturated so that my image will lay on my tumbler. If you've never tried temporary tattoos on your tumblers, it is a wonderful way to get a beautiful, very detailed image on your tumbler without having to weed any pesky vinyl or worry about printing water slides. It's great for a beginner and it's just so easy. So once I believe the tattoo has adhered, I'm going to peel that back and look how beautiful. I mean, guys, this is easy. So I'm just going to take my finger and kind of press out any water bubbles that may be trapped underneath, and then blot dry gently with a paper towel. So pretty and so easy. I'm going to speed this up here. I'm going to add a couple more tattoos. Remember to remove that plastic backing. You don't want that, otherwise the print will adhere to the backing, the plastic, and not your cup. This is such a satisfying part. And I wanted to add one more to the bottom, but I'm going to go ahead and trim this. So I'm trimming this while that plastic protective coating is still on the tattoo. And I'm just trimming off some of those leaves so that this will fit on the bottom of my tumbler without any issues. And I'm going to apply this just like I did the other two. There's no need to seal these tattoos in place. You can if you want, but there's really no need to. And from this step, I'm going to go directly into applying my glitters. I'm not going to epoxy or seal. So these are the glitters that I chose. They're just different shades of purple, different cuts of purple and pink that I like. I ended up not using that silver on the end. These are all, I believe, almost all of them are from Glitter Craze. And honestly, guys, I can't guarantee that these glitters are still available on their site because these were purchased over the last couple years and they're just in my stash. So I always apply my geode glitters with a nice brush and Mod Podge. I like Mod Podge because it does dry pretty quickly, and I can move on to the next glitters because I have no patience whatsoever. So I'm going to speed this up pretty fast because this is a long process, but it's just a pretty ASMR for adding glitter to your tumbler. If you've never done geodes, guys, give this a try. If you have a ton of glitter like me and you want to see what they look like on a tumbler without too much muss and fuss, doing a geode is awesome because you can add them to your geode and you'll be shocked and amazed at how beautiful your glitters are. And when they go together, it's just, it's amazing. Chef's kiss. I'm just brushing off the excess. With these chunky glitters, you want to make sure that you kind of pat them down a little while the glue is still dry or wet with your finger so that they're not sticking up, especially around the top and the bottom. I'm going directly into my next colors. I am not waiting for each one to dry in between because, like I said, I have no patience, and I'm okay if the glitters do kind of contaminate each other, I guess. They don't really. If you tap off your tumbler really well in between each one, your colors shouldn't contaminate. But if you're worried about that, start with your darkest colors first and then move to your lightest colors. These ones I wasn't too concerned because I'm using different shades of purple and pink and they go really well together. But if you're using like a white glitter, navy glitter, you definitely want to start off with your darkest tumbler colors first. This fine glitter likes to stick to the cured epoxy there, so just make sure that that is completely dry before you go in. But I just took a brush and just brushed that extra glitter off around, being careful not to touch the wet glue. I really don't have plans for how I want to lay out my geodes. I'm just going between the tattoos because I don't want to cover the tattoos. And I also wanted to have a nice kind of abstract look because in nature, nothing is straight. Well, I guess some things might be, but with geodes and agates and different stones, they usually kind of have a wavy look about them. Pretty fluid. Like I said, there's no right or wrong with this. You guys try it if you've never tried it. I just want to say something about this pearl glitter I'm using. I'm using a pearl fine and in the same shade of pearl chunky. And it is absolutely gorgeous. It's very pearl and matte almost. But when I put epoxy on it, it does shine. So I was a little disappointed, but it's still beautiful under epoxy. It's just not what I had hoped for. I wanted the difference between the shine and the pearl. You know, but hey, we get what we get and it looks beautiful anyway. Now this glitter I'm using here is the flashiest of flashy. It's called Girl on Fire. It's absolutely gorgeous. I think it's one of my favorite glitters right now. It's the first time I've really used it, and look at that gorgeous flash. It has a bit of a color shift from pink to purple. I love this glitter. So you'll see that I'm using more Mod Podge on some areas than others. When I know I'm going to go in with a chunkier mix, I definitely add a lot more Mod Podge to catch on to the chunky glitters. The nice thing about these glitters is that I really didn't have to go in and do any touch-ups later. But if you do, you can Mod Podge directly back over those glitters once they're completely dry and do any touch-ups. Usually whenever you're geoding. Is that a word? It's a verb. I made it up, guys. When you're doing your geodes and you're using like a fine, lighter color glitter, sometimes you have to go in and add more glitter, a second coat. This purple here is translucent, so you can see the Mod Podge behind it. And I didn't realize that when it dries, you will be able to see the gold underneath, but I was completely fine with it. The glitter is really pretty and adds a pretty sparkle. It is a beautiful sunny day out today. It's deceptive though because it's still chilly here in southern Indiana. So the birds are out there chirping and squawking, but it's not 70 degrees like I wish it was. I think it's like 40, which is fine, but oh well, we'll just listen to the birds. Now I did not want to add any geode glitters to that handle. This is probably, I've done handled tumblers in the past. I'm still perfecting my craft when it comes to handled tumblers. They are kind of tricky when you're adding glitters or when you're doing epoxy, and you'll see at the end what I mean. You want to have a light hand with any epoxy you apply with these handled tumblers because the epoxy can accumulate around that handle and just not have a very good look about it. You'll see more. I'll talk about that more later. These geodes are probably one of my top favorites because I love going through my giant glitter wall that I have and choosing glitters that I haven't used before and seeing how different combinations go together. It's a nice little experiment so that you can, take note of it and use those glitter combinations maybe on a tumbler later on. And don't be afraid to mix different cuts of glitter. I'm using fine glitter, I'm using medium cut, I'm using mixes, I'm using chunkies, I'm using chunky mixes. So it's just really a fun way to highlight your beautiful glitter and just show off the sparkle and shine because we all need more sparkle in our lives. So I'm definitely trying to fill up the negative space around those tattoos. My problem is, once I start going, I don't know when to stop. I know a little goes a long way and sometimes less is more, but come on guys, look at these glitters. I mean, I just kept wanting to add more and more. But I am trying to be careful not to cover up too much of my tattoo because what was the point of putting it on there if I'm going to cover it up? I'm going to connect these two geodes here to give it a more fluid kind of look about it. Like I said, there's no rhyme or reason. You just do your geode the way that you like and what looks pleasing to you. Make sure you pat down those chunkies, otherwise you may regret it later because you'll have to put a ton of layers of epoxy over it to cover those glitters. Once I'm done with this, I am going to go in and seal my glitters with Rust-Oleum 2x Clear Matte Spray. And that is dry. That's why my tumbler looks pretty dull and matte right now, but it'll shine back up, I promise. So I'm going to gently and carefully, even though I did spray seal my glitters, I'm going to gently go in and apply a layer of epoxy to seal these completely in place. That first layer of epoxy you put over your glitters, you definitely want to do kind of a light hand, just in case you accidentally pop up some of those chunky glitters, because even though you spray sealed them, they may still pop off. I did have a little bit of migration in my chunky glitters, and I tried to catch them, but there's still a couple, but that's okay. It adds to the sparkle, I guess. I end up putting about probably 3 layers on this glittered epoxy, or I'm sorry, drifting off with my mind. 3 layers of epoxy, letting it cure completely in between each layer. And here is after 3 fully cured layers, and my tumbler is sanded, so you'll see in some spots it looks a little bit scratchy or dull, but that's okay. I'm not finished yet. I'm going to go in with this thin lined paint marker from, I don't know how to say that, Xerox. I usually link my paint markers in the description box below. I found these, they work great. I love the flow of the acrylic, and I don't have too much muss and fuss with these, and you get them in a multi-pack from Amazon. So I'll leave that in a link below if you're interested in trying these out. So you don't have to add lines to your geodes. You can just leave it at it as is and keep it just like this. But I wanted to add a little bit more visual interest since I am using glitters that are a little bit similar in hue. You go in with just a little squiggly line. Just kind of let your hand move the way is natural. You don't have to have a straight lines for this because the glitter is not on there straight, and real natural geodes do not have really straight lines. So I'm just kind of meandering around this glitter, giving it a little bit of a border with my paint marker. When you're doing this, make sure that you're careful you don't accidentally rub your hand through the wet acrylic paint. Let that dry before moving on to the next side or whatever. And just take your time. Like I said, do what looks good to you. You don't have to do what other people are doing. You don't have to be perfect. This is a fun artistic process, and no 2 tumblers of these are going to look the same. So just do what you think looks good. You could see that right there where I was just writing, that's where that chunky pearl was, and you can see how shiny it is now. I know it's sanded, but it was not that shiny when I laid that on the tumbler. So I wish that it would have stayed more matte pearl, but in the end it just looks flashy and beautiful, and I'm okay with it. I just was a little bit disappointed because I wanted that difference in, sparkle from some of the other glitters, but that's okay. It's still pretty, and now I know what it looks like under epoxy. To me, this is a fun process because if you don't have a very steady hand, it's okay, and it just really brings the whole tumbler together in a really neat way. Once I'm finished doing my acrylic lines here, I am going to put it back on my turner and I'm going to apply epoxy, as many layers as you need to get a nice smooth finish. I do sand lightly in between my epoxy layers once they're cured, but don't, the first 1 or 2 layers of epoxy, be real careful and gentle when you're sanding, because you don't want to accidentally scratch your glitter, especially those chunkies, because it will actually take the color off of your glitter. And this is sped up. I was not actually drawing my lines this fast. I'm not that quick. So here it is before the final layer of epoxy. Looks pretty. The lines are all done. I was just making sure that I didn't miss any. She's looking beautiful. And here she is a few days later after the final layers of epoxy were applied to seal in that acrylic paint. I think she's beautiful. I hope you guys learned something new today, and I hope you give this a try too. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button. You can leave a comment or a question in the description box below, and I'll be happy to get back with you. Happy crafting, everyone, and have a beautiful day.